Hey everybody, Gatsby here. I just wanted to do a quick video for housekeeping's sake and for a couple of small additions to the game. We'll start with those and I'll try to go over them. First thing you might notice is a slight visual change, one that I think is going to make a pretty significant difference. You might be able to see a little bit of crosshatch dithering on the driveways. That is something that I have done as a part of a sort of visual overhaul. What I've done is going to be a little hard to explain without starting from the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and carry you all the way down to where Z lives in the world. So, yoink. Here's Z in the world, right? You know, all of the textures are in black and white and all that. There is a limited palette that I'm using for my sprites, and I have a big sprite sheet that's being used as the textures for the models, and I'm making the models in Crocodile. But I had experimented with trying to lower the render scale so that when in 3D, it didn't look so clean, but instead looked a little jaggy, like in the original PC Doom or something like that. And I've pulled that off before, but I was having a little bit of trouble because since this game is not actually in 3D and you are viewing it from this basically flattened orthographic 45-degree angle, you may notice that there's not consistent pixel scaling. Like, this is honestly the best I can get it. Like, a lot of these pixels are just bobbity-bop all over the place. And you might be thinking, if you are a Unity developer, well, dumbass, use Pixel Perfect camera. Well, there's lots of problems with that. Namely, this is not actually a 2D game. It's hard to have a frame of reference for which things that are visible are supposed to be a uniform pixel and which ones aren't. Because it's like just a camera looking down at a 45-degree angle at a scene that I have lined up so that it just sort of creates the illusion of it being 2D. So Pixel Perfect camera kind of stopped working. With URP, which is a universal render pipeline, which is something optional you can do in Unity, you can lower the render scale like I mentioned. But as I do that, here, I'll fucking show you. Hold on. Alright, so, you know, about half render scale is something that normally I would be like, yeah, it's perfect, but I think you can see just as well as I can that this is not gonna work. Now, it looks pretty cool when you're in the 3D angle because, you know, it's got that crunch that I'm asking for. The one that I pulled off in that other gameplay prototype that I showed you guys. I really, really like the way this looks, but it looks really, really fucking bad in 2D. Makes all of, you know, what I was already talking about the pixel scaling being off is so much worse now. So, let's fix that shit. I decided not to go with that. And I realized that I might be able to do a lot more cool shit if I just render the whole game to a little screen that's a part of the UI. So I will show you that now. Yoink. And canvas. Here we are. What's happening now is instead of the camera going straight to you, the camera is going to this render texture that is then going into the UI. And I can place different weird shaders on the big fake screen here and do some different things that I want with it. For example, the big screen here, I can change the resolution of, and I can play around with the scaling. I have had some trouble. I'm really having a lot of trouble getting it exactly how I want it. So right now, it's actually just at 1920 1080. And that'll scale with whatever your screen is. And it's got an aspect ratio thing on it that should prevent it from being squashed if you've got an ultra-wide screen. Hopefully. But, you know, I haven't built the UI yet, so I'm not making any promises. But the other thing that I did was I built a shader that limits the visible palette to the same palette that's in the sprite palette. So you might think that that's all redundant, technically. But I am not making an unlit game. What unlit means is kind of backwards from what you might think it means. If you're unfamiliar with the term, when a texture is lit, that means it can be unlit. When a texture is lit, it means it can be shaded. It can vary in darkness based on how much of the in-scene light is on it. That is what it means when it's lit. An unlit texture is always lit. Fuck you guys for making these terms because they're dumb. An unlit texture is basically not going to be affected by the laws of light in the game, and it's just always the same level of brightness. I'm not making an unlit game. I don't want to, because I like the uncanny look that the shadows have whenever you go into 3D. It really makes it look like, oh, I am in some sort of weird diorama world. And I like that a lot. But I did also want to try and sell the illusion that this still could be a game running on older hardware if you hold your mouth just right. And so I wanted to limit the colors to the palette of the sprite palette. And it took a second to get that done because, as you can see, this scene's supposed to be mostly black and white. And it kept trying to turn certain things pink and blue. Things that I didn't want to be pink and blue. So I fixed that. And then, whenever I put my foil item back in the world, that's supposed to be an uncanny blend of colors that aren't supposed to be able to be visible in this world, it was making it black and white. So I had to fix that. And I also added some dithering. So whenever it approaches a color it doesn't really know how to sell to you, it's going to dither pixels together and sort of try and piece it together. Now, I did play around with making the dithering pixels bigger, and just, it looks so fucking awful, so I'm not going to do that. Just mostly wanted to get rid of these blurry edges where the world is compensating for the lack of the shades of color, and instead make things a little sharper and edgier. So this does have a similar look to it to what I've asked for here. It's still a little crunchy, and I'm happy about that. You know, it doesn't fuck things up down here, but you can tell there's some interesting shit going on. Like, for example, there is in-world fog. So now it's dithering those distant textures to sell the idea of that distance fog. Let's see. I like the way the shadows look now. You know, they're not perfect, but they're pretty cool. And let me get the camera right here. Oh, I forgot to... There is a tag I have to put on the object that'll make it to where the camera doesn't do that. So give me a moment here. Oh, it's a layer. My mistake. All right, there's a layer that I have to put this item and its children on called Not Walls. And that tells my my camera script, hey, don't treat this like a wall and don't push the camera forward. Because the player's probably just trying to get a good look at this thing. So I'll boot the game back up. There we go. And much better. So you can see that it kind of moves between like a green even while it's trying to approach those pinks. I like that a lot. And of course, you know, the solid colors of the particles are working. If you want to know how I did that jitter, that is me actually abusing a glitch of probably any game development engine, which is Z-fighting. Z-fighting isn't actually just punching each other really fast. It is, in fact, whenever two textures are in the exact same spot on the Z-axis. And so the engine will just sort of like interpolate between the two really fast. And it'll look fucked up. And you don't want that normally, but I like the way it looks for an object that's supposed to be a glitch in reality. So I actually have two differently sized versions of this card Z-fighting with each other on purpose. And, you know, like I've mentioned before, a lot of this game's story is kind of sort of about being trapped in a video game. So, like, a lot of moments where I can make mechanics and plot elements, things we already know are kind of busted about video games. That's going to be cool to me. So, yeah. I'm also obviously rebuilding my chunk system, or else, you know, there would not be an edge to the world here. I realized that there wasn't really any uniformity to the way that I was doing things, so I thought it might be good to clean things up. I am also quite intimidated by adding some features to my dialogue system, so I'm going to start over. If you are in any way impressed by my ability to script things, don't be. I think you already know that there are some new tools that are helping a lot of ignorant fools like me with coding, and I am very thankful for those tools. That's going to be the end of that conversation. But outside of that, I think it's going to make more sense to just start over on the dialogue system with a fresher idea of everything that I want it to do. Because right now it only just has branching dialogue. It can't like trigger cutscenes or changes to the world, and I needed to be able to do all that. As for housekeeping, back whenever I was first experiencing a lot of depression and burnout about Bro Op and the channel, I polled the community to see where they wanted me to put these videos as I sort of chronicled my developer experience. And they generally were like, well, put them on Bro Op. That's what makes sense. But the more I've thought about it, the more I personally feel like that's the wrong move. I think that the channel itself on YouTube should sort of be a time capsule of everything that is and was beautiful about the channel and about my friends. Yes, I do understand that the way the channel ended wasn't necessarily violent or disruptive. My friends and I are still friends, but they want nothing to do with the channel, and not even in an aggressive way. They won't even really talk to me about the channel. Whenever I try to bring up the channel, they change the subject. I don't know what or why. I can't even really figure out a way to have a conversation with them about how ending the channel was the hardest thing I've done in my life. Like, I sobbed openly making the low battery video and had to like have my wife like help me get through that day. And I'm having a hard time really coping with the fact that my best friends for the past 10 years have had no reaction to the ending of the channel and continue to just dodge the topic. So anything I do for my own mental health to try to cope with the loss of that really ought not be here. Even this video will not stay here because it is not meant to be a blast on my friends. It's just, why not put it here? They haven't answered me anywhere else. So, you know. But yeah, I am going to move this content to another space. I will provide a link to it. It's more than likely going to be just a personally named channel. I did put a poll out about what this game should be published under if I were to ever possibly do that, and I put a bunch of options. My personal favorite name for a game development studio is Dead Pixel, but I am also aware of the fact that a game development studio called Never Going Viral would be very appropriate considering its roots. But overwhelmingly, people just want me to have my own individual ownership of this, so put it under my real name or my most often used handle, Gatsby. So yeah, that's where we're moving. I might ruin that channel by also posting my political opinions, so get ready for that. Because again, a lot of the change in content has been about me genuinely needing to vent about what is breaking my heart. And obviously, for some of you, the political state of the world right now is very scary. And for the rest of you, you are blissfully comfortable in a lack of understanding of what's going on. So, God bless you. But for the sake of my sanity, if you are the kind of person that's going to just get super butthurt by even me possibly mentioning those feelings, you can just not bother to come to the new channel. That's going to be fine too. The reason I'm going to go ahead and get that right out here right now is that Video games are literature. That is not negotiable or up for debate. Video games are literature. The video game I'm producing is narrative literature. It is a story, and it is thematic. Overall, a lot of the weird supernatural circumstances that these characters are going to face are intended to be metaphors for the real-life struggles that we have often had a hard time putting into words. So, I'm going to talk about those things too. And if you disagree with me, that's honestly better than if you're the kind of person that's just going to groan and say, oh, I don't want to hear it. Those are the people I don't want to see anymore. So yeah. Video games!